Welcome to the Rise to the Challenge podcast. Join me today. He's a professional paddleboarder, author, motivational speaker, and advocate. It's Mike Shoreman. How are you doing today, Mike?
I'm great, Alex. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to have you on the show to talk about all about your rise to the challenge. What we like to do with our guests is go right to the beginning, talk about where you're from and what were you involved in growing up.
So I'm from Toronto, Canada, so just on top of New York. And so naturally, I see you're wearing Cardinals sweater there.
Yep.
I'm a Blue Jays fan. I'm kind of a little bit in trouble a lot because I'm a Blue Jays fan and a Yankees fan, and they're in the same division, so it doesn't really work well for me. Um, but yeah, I'm from Toronto, and growing up, I was like as a child. You mean?
Yeah, go right to the beginning.
Yeah. So growing up, I grew up in two homes, split family, and I was very involved in sports. So hockey, karate, soccer, um, softball, biking, and competitive swimming. And I was always being thrown into something, but it was great. It kept me busy, and I loved it.
Growing up in a split family, was it hard for you going back and forth, or were you guys able to manage it and it's like no one could tell anything was happening?
Yeah, so I think I didn't really notice it too much. You know, it was managed very well. I do remember, the households were very, very different. So when I was with my mom, it was just me and my mom.
Hmm.
And I was with her the majority of the time. And then I'd see my dad, every Thursday night or every Tuesday or Thursday, and then every other weekend and holidays and stuff. But my dad's home, there were siblings, and it was louder. Whereas with my mom, it was just me and her, so I had to grow up. So I grew up way faster, I think, in many ways because I was having dialogue primarily with a parent and with her friends. But no, it was good. I enjoyed it. It was just very, very different households. It was entertaining.
I can definitely relate with that. Growing up in my family, it was split household at a very, very young age. And so basically going back and forth to the households, it's basically I grew up doing it all my life and until I got to a certain point where it's like, okay, I'm just going to drive over there and just visit and stuff. So a lot of kids nowadays can relate to that. And a lot of people as adults can understand that feeling because they've gone through the similar
Yeah,
situations.
yeah, yeah. No, it was just very strange. Like I remember very well, like just growing up with my mom. So like I'd watch adult shows, like at an age where most kids might not have. So
Mhm.
like on Monday nights when my mom was watching Melrose Place, I was watching Melrose Place with my mom, and then I'd go over to my dad's, and things would be completely different because I had younger sisters, and we're watching Power Rangers and stuff like that. Like, it was just completely different.
Growing up, when you were playing all those different sports, was there always a sport that kind of caught your attention the most? Like, I want to do that more.
Yeah, so I think I always kind of, you know, I wa- I always loved the Olympics. Um, and being from Canada up in the north, naturally, I think I went, I gravitated towards, or I was more entertained by the Winter Olympics,
Hmm.
the adrenaline sports.
Yep.
So, the bobsled, the luge, like the dangerous ones. It just was exciting, like the aerials with the skiing, when you go off the ramps.
Yep.
And it just excited me. and I loved seeing it. And I wish I wish I grew up in a different part of the country where I could have been close to training centers, because that would have been something that I possibly would have considered going into someday. But no, I was very involved with sports, and I always loved volleyball, and baseball. I still watch baseball quite regularly. um but yeah, no, sports have always been a part of my life.
Did those sports teach you anything about yourself that you never knew you had it in you?
Yeah. So I think, when you play sports, it allows you to, so when you play sports, there's winning and then there's losing. And you have to get over losing, because it's a fact. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
going to happen, right?
Yep.
So, like, even in baseball, like, you might be on a great team, but you're going to lose a bunch of times throughout the season. And it's learning how to take those losses and just put them behind you and just carry on. So I think, when people are involved with sports, um, it's a great thing for kids, because it helps you build resilience.
When you took those losses in sports, did you ever have that competitive feel that you wanted to maybe go pro eventually with sports?
Not with any of the sports that I did. So I fell into karate by accident. Um, I think karate was the one where I probably could have gone the furthest, before I ended up doing what I did. Um, but with karate, it was interesting. I was being bullied in school, so my dad put me in karate lessons, and he said, let's teach you to be able to stand up for yourself, and to defend yourself, in case it came to that. And which I actually don't agree with. I don't think you should fight.
Hmm.
I think there are many other different, but times were different back then. So, but anyways, I did karate, and you know I excelled at it very, very quickly. And I think it was 93 or 94, but I won the junior world championships, for the belt that I was in. And it was a big thing. Um, it was unexpected, and we didn't, we didn't even know or think that I could be in contention. And then I just stopped. And I don't really know why I stopped, like, looking back at it, but I could have carried it on, and done something big with that, I think. But who knows?
You
Who
could have
knows?
represented Canada in the Olympics,
I could have.
just in the wrong season of the Olympics, not the winter
Mm,
one, but the summer one.
but the summer one, yeah, yeah. But now, there's, stand-up paddleboarding is a big part of my life. And um, there's the world championships. They're trying to get it into the Olympics. I think it will be in the Olympics, not this one in Tokyo, but I think it will be a part of the following Summer Olympics, and that's very exciting. Because then it'll be, if it's in the Olympics, it'll be in the Paralympics too. So that opens doors and opportunity. So that's exciting.
Well, look at all the sports they just added, that like surfing. I think golf is now in it. Sports rock climbing or sports climbing. I think it's just they knew that there's these big sports out there and they have to keep something fresh. Like, let's get as many athletes as we can to have that dream of being an Olympian one day.
Yeah. What sport were you into sports when you were a kid?
Growing up, I was all over the place with sports. Baseball, soccer, yeah, tennis. I almost forgot the sports that I played. And so it was just fun to be out on the field and stuff. And then as I got older, injuries and then other stuff was happening. And then I kind of view myself as a wild card in a way. Like people don't look at me and think, oh, he's athletic, but that's when I come in and showcase the skills. Like it's kind of like you're gonna keep me hidden for a while and stuff. That's why, like when I was in college, intramural sports were so fun because it's not like you're being competitive, but it's just all about having fun. And
Yeah,
I keep telling myself I'm gonna do a summer league every year, but
yeah.
then I can't find it. Like I was just watching dodgeball on
Okay.
TV. And I'm like, oh, I really need to be in a dodgeball team right now, but they don't have those out here. So, but sports,
I joined a men's dodgeball league in Toronto for a season, 6, 7 years ago. And it was so much fun.
oh,
So
I'm
much fun.
jealous.
Yeah, just like whipping it. It's so good. So good.
We all just imagine ourselves being Vince Vaughn and Ben Stiller in the dodgeball movie.
Yeah,
We're just diving for everything.
yeah, yeah.
As you're growing up, did you have any motivations or inspirations? Someone that you looked up to, someone that kept you going in all your goals that you wanted to achieve?
Yeah, so I think it all go like, so I talk about it. So I've got a new book out. It's called Crash and Rise, and I talk about it in my speeches, in my talks. I talk about the importance of superheroes. Um, and growing up, I was a big Batman fan. So although not a real figure,
Hmm.
there were many qualities about 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 the character that I really identified with, and I really just gravitated towards. Um, stoic and brave, and um, always trying to do the right thing, even when it's hard. Um, and I just fell in love with the whole kind of Gotham universe, and that's kind of carried me through to going into professional paddleboarding, and then having an identity crisis because I'm not really Batman, I'm more Aquaman. But but no, I think I really looked to for characters, um, and also sports figures. um, you know I always love a comeback. um, I think I think America loves a comeback. They love a good comeback story. So like Carrie Strug at the Olympics, like the gymnast,
Mhm.
when she was like down and out, and then she came back and she landed that vault.
Yep.
Like that's just like boom power. Like everybody sit down. I'm speaking. Like just amazing moments like that. I found hugely inspirational to watch. Um, yeah, so I love a good comeback.
Well, those are the moments you'll remember forever. I mean, people are still talking about that moment every time they do like a package during the Olympics. NBC here in America, they always showcase that. And you ask the gymnast, like, what's a memorable moment? They always they mention that as a memorable moment. And I love how you mentioned Batman as an inspiration because I think people always view that question as it has to be an actual person, which it doesn't have to be because there's characteristics that those characters are basically technically a human in a way. If you take the cape off of them, they're technically an individual person living in a world. And people gravitate towards those characteristics, or they're such a fan and they're like, I can see myself in those people. And I think that's what makes it so special. So I love the comparison that you've done and the attributes that Batman brought into your life and that you utilize those today. And there's probably things Aquaman does that
Yeah,
you can relate to. And it still is an inspiration that people utilize today.
I think especially what they do well when creating superheroes is and when they're building up the character of the hero.
Hmm.
In every story, there's a hero, whether it's your story or somebody else's story or a made up story. Um, but I love how in all of these stories, they are flawed characters.
Yep.
And there are good parts of them, and then there are dark parts of them. And it's contrasting. And I find that really one of my favorite things to do now is people watch. I love just watching people and watching, not like sometimes on like the train or something, but mostly like I study people who have businesses, and I watch them, and I watch how they build and what their systems and what their processes are. And I find people watching very interesting, even today.
I can admit to that too. It's just, it's, you always think like, what's their life? What's something that's going on? And you just want to know more. And I think then that gives me like the confidence to start talking to them. And then I just talk to someone random and it's like, okay, that just made my day.
Yeah.
What was that dream job that you were wanting growing up? It's always that one question we always get asked. What's that dream job?
So it's really funny. Both of my parents both work in law. They both work in law firms. My mom works in corporate, and my dad works in medical malpractice. He's the equivalent of Aaron Brockovich in Canada. So growing up, I used to see my dad come home in a suit, and like it's not the same now. Like now, like in law firms and stuff, like you don't dress up like you did back in the early 90s. Like
Hmm.
it was to the nines. And I just thought, oh yeah, there he is in his nice briefcase, and he's got all these files, and he looks very important. And I thought, that's going to be me someday. I'm going to be that. I'm going to, follow in his footsteps and do what he does. And eventually, I went into public relations and marketing. And then I turned that into a paddleboarding career. I became a professional paddleboarder. And then because of what happened, health-wise, I pivoted and transitioned into consulting and speaking and authoring a book and coaching. So it's weird when you look back at what we think we're going to do and then what we end up actually doing.
Yep.
What about you?
So I always, every time like you have those, oh, this person's going to be this when they grow up, I always got game show host.
Oh,
And I still thought I was going to be a game show host. I don't know why, because I used to watch them all the time. Didn't even go into that direction. I'm like, I don't want to be in California, nothing. I didn't want any of that. But now I kind of say I'm hosting in a way because I host my own show. I don't control everything, but it's like I'm still living that passion in a way. You
yeah,
never know. I could end up being on a game show sometime,
you never know.
someday, just
It
not
could happen.
now. Talk about the support, or maybe not the support, when you made that decision to become a professional paddleboarder, because I think a lot of people that are listening to this, they maybe didn't even think that you could be a professional paddleboarder as an athlete. So talk about getting involved in that, and what was the reaction from your family and friends that you were becoming that?
So, yeah, so you can become a professional paddleboarder. So, I was actually on a trip, and I was overseas. I was in India, and I'd taken up paddleboarding as a hobby several years earlier. So paddleboarding, for people who are listening, is essentially surfing with a paddle.
Hmm.
um, and I, took a lesson and I fell in love with it. And while I was away, years later, I had this kind of light bulb moment that I wanted to turn it into a career. So I wanted to build a business where I would create experiences for people and teach them how, and and just build up their confidence and their power in it, because a lot of people, they'd show up and they'd be all nervous and anxious and scared, but by the end of it, they were like gladiators out there, and it was, really cool. I remember, and I talk about it in Crash and Rise, my book. I remember having the conversation with my family, because they're in law, right? And,
Hmm.
you're just kind of, and I'm abandoning all my post-secondary education. I did an internship at the number one PR agency in the world, and I'm just abandoning like everything. And it was weird. Like I'm part of the LGBTQ community. It was like coming out again. I was totally freaked out. I was like, why do I have to tell them that I'm a professional paddleboarder? But they were really cool about it. They were like, yeah, like, do what you love. And, as long as you're great at whatever you do, just keep doing it, and hit a home run. And so I did. I built this thing, and yeah, no, they were very supportive. My friends were very supportive as well. I find that people who, I circle around a lot of entrepreneurs, and I have for several years. Most of my good friends have their own businesses. Um, so I think, when I said I was going to open a business and this is what it was going to be, I think they saw that it could be really great. And they were excited. So I didn't really have any holdups from anybody around me.
You mentioned that you're going away from what your family was doing with law and stuff, but kind of when you're opening a business, you're still using PR and marketing in any aspect. Do you feel that you are still utilizing that college experience and what you were learning to build that business and show your family, I'm still utilizing it, maybe just not in the direction that you thought I was going in?
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't think so. When I entered into the marketplace with my business, there were about 10 companies that were doing what I was doing, like teaching paddleboarding, and doing clinics and lessons and rentals. And and by the end of my first season, I shot up to the number one, not just in the city, but in the province. So like
Hmm.
the state. Um, and I did that by using the marketing and the public relations skills that I had learned in school. So I contacted all the top blogs, all the top influencers. I had Olympic athletes come out. I had stars from Big Brother come out paddleboarding. I partnered with the Canadian Safe Boating Council to be their media guy. So whenever, I don't know if you guys do this for Memorial Day, but we have a similar holiday weekend that weekend,
Hmm.
and it kind of signals boating season is open. So they do water safety demonstrations for the news, like all the news companies. So I contacted them and I said, hey, you guys need a paddleboarder, and and they said yes. So I became this media personality, and it gave me the authority that the other paddleboarding businesses didn't have, and the credibility, and that shot me to it shot me to success with my business very quickly. And yeah, so no, I talk about marketing with entrepreneurship in the book. When I started, like I did SWOT analysis of all of my competitors, everything like strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. I had graphs. It was a crazy thing, but no, I used marketing and PR throughout my paddleboarding career, and even in what I'm doing now, very much so.
Did you enjoy following your passion with paddleboarding, but in creating awareness of a sport that maybe wasn't out there yet?
Yeah, so the amazing thing about paddleboarding is how peaceful and how calming it is. Toronto's got one of the, I don't know if you've been, but it's got one of the nicest, most beautiful skylines in the world. Um, and I would teach right in front of our skyline at sunset or
Mhm.
during the day and at sunset. But I had a program that I ran, and in the evenings, and we have an airport right beside, you know, where we would do it. So we'd be teaching, and planes would be coming into land, and the sunset would be happening, and it was very picturesque and beautiful. Um, and and at the time, paddleboarding is the fastest growing water sport in North America right now. It has been for the last several years, and it continues to be. And I think that's because of the exposure that it keeps on getting. So it just keeps on building. I've looked at the trend forecasts, and it doesn't seem to be slowing down. But no, I felt pride with being able to share that with other people. And part of my favorite part about what I did was at the end of my lessons, I'd kind of position all of my students up like in a row, and I'd tell them to hold their paddles up, and I'd take a picture of them like the gladiator pose, and I'd send them home with like wow photos. Um, and that was great because they go home with like a take home piece, and also they don't have to worry about losing their phone out there, um, because that can happen.
I actually tried paddleboarding a couple years ago on a vacation in Florida. And like you said, it was peaceful. It was just nice. And I mean, I'm like I said, I was a wild card. So people thought, you're going to fall and stuff. Nah, I got up in a second. But just going out as far as I could, it's just, and looking out into the distance of the water, it's just like peaceful. Like you're just like, wow, look where I'm at. But like you said, those people didn't have their phones. Nope, I had my phone with me. I'm like, I got to get every photo I can. But it's showing that a lot of resorts nowadays are doing that, the paddleboarding, and they're just showcasing it. And you don't have to stand up. You can sit, you can just paddle out softly like a
Yeah,
canoe. And it's just amazing. It's
yeah,
growing, like you said.
yeah. Bring some Tupperware and put some snacks in it, and just go out and have a picnic on the board, and just if you don't really want to be physically active, you can just go out and lay on it, and just get some sun and be with nature. It's a great activity. I was very sad when it all came to an end. Um, and fortunately, um, that wasn't the end of the story, and I did get back on, but it was very hard to say to watch that business fall apart.
So talk about that moment, because there might be entrepreneurs out there that maybe have gone through a similar situation with their business. So talk about what happened and what did that do to you mentally?
Yeah, so I had set the business up to run, seasonally, from May through October. And a few years in, I'd set out to go out to California to establish and form partnerships with paddleboarding companies out there, so that I could be out there, making a living and earning in my off season. And I was going to run retreats down the Colorado River, and that was the plan, and be out on Laguna Beach and do that. And I came back and I was really excited about life, and I got really sick really fast, like 10 days later. So what happened was I developed a neurological condition called Ramsay Hunt syndrome, and it's a reactivation of your chicken pox as shingles. And when shingles attacks your eye or your ear, it doesn't happen a lot. It's rare. But for me, it caused my face to collapse on the one side. Um, Speech, vision problems, hearing damage in the one ear, and I lost my sense of balance. So my mobility was gone. Um, so overnight, successful, fit, athletic guy to not being able to walk. Um, and that was very hard to identify. It was hard to, it was like an identity crisis in many ways. I didn't recognize who was looking back at me in the mirror. I didn't recognize who I was now, without what I did for without my work. I didn't recognize this new life that was now mine, and that was kind of forced upon me. So it was very, I think when people, this year especially, so many people have lost their jobs with the pandemic. So many people have gone through isolation and so many things. I think, when something catastrophic happens out of the blue, it takes a mental toll on you, whether it's an illness, whether it's a death, whether it's a job collapse, and it takes a significant mental toll. And I wasn't prepared for that. When the doctors said finally, at the I went to a walk-in in 3 different hospitals
Wow.
over like 5 days, before they ran tests, and before they said, um, you missed the 72-hour window for treatment. There was a lot of anger. Um, but when they said, what do you do for work? And I said, well, I paddleboard. like I have a business, and they just looked at me and they said, oh boy. Unbelievable. So yeah, no, I think the emotional toll for me, I actually had to go and get mental health treatment. And I boxed it up for a long time, and I didn't talk about how I didn't talk about how I was feeling, or what I was going through. Um, partic- Particularly because I didn't want to burden people any more than I already was. And also, I don't think I was really ready to deal with it. I wasn't ready to do the work until it got to the point where I had to.
Looking back at that time, do you wish you kind of told people about what the mental health struggles that you're going through? Or do you still think that you did the right decision with keeping it in?
So I think it's always healthy to talk about things, and to be open, and um, and to share what you're going through. with somebody that you feel safe to do so. For me, it all just happened so fast. And the news just kept on getting worse and worse and worse. And like, this week we're sending you for an MRI to rule out brain damage. This week we're sending
Hmm.
you to physiotherapy and we'll see if we can help you. Like it just kept on compounding. And I felt like I was in this tsunami of just being whipped around. And I felt like I couldn't breathe and I was drowning. Um, but no, I would definitely tell, people, it's Mental Health Awareness Month right now. I would definitely tell people, we need to normalize conversations and stop making people feel so badly about what they're feeling and what they're going through, because it's um, it's an important thing. And when you normalize important conversations, it saves lives. Um, so yeah, no, I would definitely tell people that. Although with my journey, um, would I go back and change things? No, um, because it led me down a path, and by going and getting mental health treatment, it actually gave me a lot of confidence. I think, when I went into a crisis center, um, it gave me the confidence that I could do really hard things. I could do things that make me really uncomfortable. And when I came out of that, I was more confident than I'd been in a long time, and it gave me the confidence to go out and do other hard things. Um, and I talk about that, when I'm speaking at schools or businesses or um, to readers, how we build on wins and how we can leverage that, and how every win, kind of big or small, sets us up for our next.
Did you ever have a feeling that you're going to be able to possibly get back on a paddleboard? Maybe not at the high intensity like before, but just to still have that enjoyment of being out there.
So no, I remember having a breakdown. I just come out of having an MRI. To summarize this condition, vertigo and dizziness is a big part of it. So even now, sometimes it's like a carousel in my head, and
Hmm.
I feel like I'm being whipped around. So like when I turn my head from side to side, like I get dizzy just doing that. And I remember them saying, like, we're gonna do the do your physiotherapy and we'll see how you do. Like there's no guarantee. But your paddleboarding's done. Like it's not a reality. You're also, gonna feel sick when you go on planes. Going on car trips is out. Um, so I remember when I got out of that crisis center, I was put in a position where I had the opportunity to get on a board. And I had that confidence instilled in me from doing that hard thing, that I thought, okay, I can try this for a few minutes. I can see how it goes. It was very scary. I had somebody right beside me. I was sitting down. I didn't try to stand up. I just wanted to see, and it did. It made me feel really sick. I was knocked out for probably a day and a half, from just sitting down on a board on water for three minutes. But that win gave me the confidence that I could do it again. Um, and then I did it for 5 minutes, and then 7 minutes, and then I stood up a couple months later. Um, and this summer, um, I will become the first person with a disability to paddleboard from one country to another. I'm paddleboarding from the US to Canada, from New York to Toronto.
Wow, that's awesome. And it
Yeah.
just shows that you put your mind to something. And I think that gives so many people that are listening to this inspiration in a way, because you didn't let something that you're going through stop you from accomplishing a goal or taking away your passion.
Yeah. I actually think that you know that that specialist who was with me and my dad in that room, who said that this isn't a reality for you. I think that fueled me. That lit a fire in me. Um, I've had conversations with my dad since where he said, I think on the other side of this giant paddle that you're gonna do, like, this historic paddle, like I think that, you should send him all the news coverage and just say, here you go. Like you don't you don't know me. Um, um, but no, I think, when people say, you can't do things, don't let that hold you back from, you know, believe in yourself. And if you can't believe in yourself, find somebody that you trust, that you believe in, and they believe in you enough, and just take that until you do. Um, so no, um, yeah.
So you mentioned throughout the interview about writing a book. What gave you the right idea to start writing a book, and how has that impact been for you?
Yeah, so I, I part of my story is how I pivoted with my career. So essentially, my career ended, and I've talked about this, a lot. How sometimes we walk in the dark on an unpaved road, and we have to build it ourselves
Hmm.
until we see what's in front of us. Kind of like the Steve Jobs quote, like you can connect the dots looking back, but not looking forward. Um, so in many ways, I was building this road that I didn't see. So on a chance, you know, one of my mentors, um, I talk about mentorship quite a bit, is, she sent me some information. She said, I think you should do this thing. And it was North America's largest inspirational speaking competition. And I thought, I've never done a speech before. Well, I had. I was valedictorian. I gave a really terrible speech. But other than that, like, I don't do speeches. And these were all TED Talk speakers and people who go into like Google and do stuff like that. And anyways, so I just applied on a whim, and anyways, I ended up winning. I won, and that speech has gone viral, and it's been seen by like millions of people, and it opened up opportunities and windows and doors that I never entertained before. Um, and Jay Shetty shared the speech, and Ashton Kutcher's platform, and it just became crazy, what happened after that. But the book came very quickly. I had started journaling as a method of coping, um, following getting help, and I was keeping track of different events that had happened and my takeaways, what I had learned, what I thought was valuable, and could help entrepreneurs, what could help people who are, struggling, um, and providing kind of like a roadmap, that I didn't have, that I thought would be helpful. So so it all happened, quite quickly. I you know I did the speech, started working on a book very quickly after, and it just came out this year. So yeah, so Crash and Rise, it's on my wall. Diaries of the Unbalanced Paddleboarder, because unbalanced, a little bit mental health, a little bit I lost my sense of balance. And it's a, you know, it's a little bit biographical, it's a little bit self-help, um, and it's designed as a light, fun, entertaining beach read with a lot of pop culture. If you like pop culture references and like I try to make it fun.
When you're looking at your journey so far, do you feel that you are always looking at what's next? Like, I accomplished being able to get back on a board. I'm now accomplishing to go out and go from one country to the next. Are you always looking at what is that next challenge I want to go for?
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know if you've seen it, but the Matthew McConaughey Oscar speech that he gave a couple years ago, um, where where he talks about feeling proud and accomplishments, and he talks about, you know, in 10 years, you know, he'll be proud of that guy in 10 years, and then 10 years comes, and he's like, he's always chasing
Hmm.
for that pivotal moment, even though he was standing on a stage holding an Oscar, like it just like continuing, and you know, what can we work towards. So you know, this year was a great year. I became the International Stand-Up Paddleboarding Man of the Year award winner. I was the first Canadian, the first person with a disability. Um, Recently, I was nominated to be inducted into the Canadian Disability Hall of Fame. That might be happening. Um, you know, I'm doing this big paddle, but I feel like, and I'm doing it for a mental health charity. So I'm hoping to raise a significant amount of money for them. But what I hope is that, you know, on the other side of that, that it, you know, it fires me up, and I'm like, what can I do next? I can go from England to France. And like I'm just thinking about like all these things. Like, what will I do next? When does the next book come out? Like, when does this happen? Like, I think, you know, it's, you know, I plan my life, generally 6 months out. Um, kind of like a TV show films.
Hmm.
Like I'm like, what's coming up 6 months from now? Let's lock that down and keep on going. And then, you know, in the in the present, like I just, you know, go through and enjoy the motions. But I'm very much thinking about the future, um, and working towards goals and ticking off boxes as I go.
So I know we're getting serious, but we're going to break it up and do something fun. How
Yeah,
long do you think it'll take you to go from, you said New York to Toronto on a paddleboard?
yeah.
How long do you
Um,
think it'll take you?
so I'm going to be supported by two safety boats. I'm talking with Red Bull right now to be on one of them, which is super exciting. Um, you know, I think most people, you know, it's 93 miles on a very clear day. You can see it faintly from down on the water. So I'm really hoping that it's clear skies,
Yep.
because that'll give me something to see. Um, but but I think realistically, it's going to take 3 days. I'm going to have to do a lot of it sitting down. I'm going to have to do a lot of it in the dark, um, and and that's, you know, worrying. the whole point of it really is it's kind of like a mental health journey.
Hmm.
You have to just go through it, and you have to trust that you're going to make it on the other side, and you just have to keep on going. So I'm not in a rush to, I don't need to beat a world record. Not that there is one, but I don't
Hey, you
need
can
to.
start it. I mean, Guinness World Records will put anything in a world record nowadays.
Yeah. No, I'll be happy to just finish and to do that. And and yeah, no, it'll be rough. It'll be challenging. I'm sure people on TikTok will find it hilarious when I'm having epic breakdowns in the middle of the lake
Oh
saying,
no.
"Why did I do this?"
I mean, you basically could start a TV show with your just the 3-day TV show put out into like 10 episodes or something. Are you videotaping or doing anything where people can broadcast it? Or, I mean, this is probably all talks and planning, but have you ever thought about like taking like a GoPro and putting it on where you're able to show people this is the 3-day journey that I'm about to go on?
Yeah, so we are talking about how it's going to look with filming. I do have a crew, like I've got two support crews on two boats. And I've got somebody who specializes in videography and social media. He's going to be leading that charge. So there will be equipment out there, and yeah, no, it'll be entertaining. It'll be yeah, people go like, what is this guy doing? But no, I hope it just reminds people. I hope it removes some of the stereotypes that we have about people with disabilities, and I hope that it does a lot of good for the mental health. I'm working with a youth mental health organization, with the money raised going towards them. So I hope it does a lot of good.
The final question I'll ask you for someone that's listening to this interview based on your journey and experience, what tips or advice would you give someone to overcome obstacles, accomplish their goals, and rise to the challenge?
So I would set out to find a mentor, and I would research people who have gone through what you are going through now before. I think it's incredibly powerful to meet those people and to connect with them and to build relationships. So one of my mentors, you know, I tried to normalize my condition, and I got out the Google, and I Googled famous people my condition because it was so rare and I needed to put a face on it that I recognized.
Hmm.
And I found that the founder of P90X, the fitness program,
Okay.
Tony Horton, he got this condition and it put him in a wheelchair about a year earlier. And he's made a significant recovery. But I wrote to Tony in like my darkest hours, um, and he kind of led the way for me for a while. He sent me encouraging messages, um, and he reminded me that I was capable of overcoming these challenges and these obstacles. And I think it's just incredibly powerful when you find your Yoda,
Hmm.
and you just hit it off with them. So for those people who, whether it's entrepreneurial or not, I think it's incredibly valuable for anyone. It's not just kids who need mentors. Everybody does. Everybody could everybody can learn from people who have gone through what they are going through before.
Well, Mike, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and talking about your rise to the challenge. You're inspiring so many people, and we're excited to see what the future looks like for you.
Thanks so much, Alex. Thanks for having me.